Excellent. So
Share.
call the order at 1:08 p.m. on August 26th.
So,
Members present, John Regan,
David Burrell,
Dave Braschke.
Jim Dooling.
Sean McElroy.
And I'm present, Kristen Grubbs.
I'm also here, Sadie Woodward.
okay, and everybody's microphones work. That's good. We have the minutes. Has everybody reviewed them?
yes.
Yes.
And any changes? Motion accept?
Second,
Okay, all those in favor?
aye.
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 Okay. Sadie, do you have the compilation, or is that where we want to go at this point?
Sure, yeah.
Did everybody vote for the same people?
I got like all the scores
Yep,
compiled into a little spreadsheet here.
excellent.
And some people had some more little detailed comments, which I thought was really helpful too. I just put those underneath. And then I took the average score. Oh, Jim, I didn't, this might have just been a mistake, but I just didn't see any score written.
Yeah, I accidentally forgot to include them, so it was the same as the others.
Okay. So this might just be a little bit inaccurate, but can be fixed. Just give me one second.
So, I wanted to give a little bit of a update, like a timeline update since our last meeting. I've had some back and forth with Mass DOT just to clarify and clear up for myself and to share with you all. So
Okay, I'm not hearing anybody.
you're not hearing me, Sean?
I can hear you.
Okay. Oh, Sean looks frozen.
Either that or he's going to win the steering contest.
Sean, I don't know. Oh,
We just lose them.
oh, let me turn his video off. Can you hear us now, Sean? Sometimes turning the video off does help with audio. And he's still is muted.
He's actually off my screen.
Hello?
Yep.
Hi, Sean.
Okay.
Can you-
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, you're back.
All right.
I think you froze for a minute and then your video turned off, so.
Okay. All right. What did I miss?
Okay, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing at all. I just wanted, I had some back and forth with Mass DOT, so I wanted to update on that. And the good news is we have a little bit more time than previously discussed. So that what has to happen is the town has to select a consultant before September 30th. We don't have to have the entire contract signed, negotiated, signed, reviewed by town council, all of that, which can take some time. So I wanted to share that up front, just to say we're not in quite as much of a time crunch as I was worried about. And I do think that's helpful related to the way the RFQ is written, as you recall, is that this committee would make a recommendation to the select board, and then the select board would actually vote to hire the consultant. And then that's all that needs to happen at the board level. And then Tracy, as procurement officer, is, I would work with her to actually, work through the contract and with town council. So does that make sense? Does anyone have questions about that? Yeah, so the select board is now meeting, so they're meeting tonight. We're not on that agenda. They're meeting September 9th. I have a placeholder on that agenda. They're also meeting September 23rd. So I did just, again, want to sort of put that out there because I think one thing we should talk through today is if we want to have, you know, 2 or maybe 3 finalists actually come present to us. If we're in a position where we feel like, you know, there are a couple top proposals, couple top firms, but actually meeting the people who are, you know, project manager, point people who we'd actually be working with would be a helpful component of the decision. That's allowed, you know, and we now have potentially the time to do that if we want to do that. I will just, again, the project I most recently kind of went through all this with was the Plum Island Turnpike feasibility study with Newburyport. The main difference there is that the selection committee was all staff. So it wasn't public meeting. It wasn't quite, you know, the scheduling wasn't quite as challenging as we potentially might have it if we have people come present. But we did, you know, go through the review in a similar matrix process and then selected 2 finalists, and we did have their team come in, do a presentation. Essentially, they did like a 10-minute PowerPoint summarizing what, you know, their paper proposal was, and then there was an opportunity for questions. So again, it sort of allowed a little bit more of a personal, you know, chance to ask questions and have a dialogue with the consultant team. So I think in that process, I did find it valuable. I think the selection committee felt that was valuable. But again, might not be required if everyone's gone through the, you know, the paper review and is sort of has a consensus about our top picks.
Well, the scoring system shows that we're all at least in agreement on Stantec. So I think that's good news that we all read the same thing. I don't know if it would be worth it. I guess Kittleson would be the next to put them face to face. That they, in my mind, they were very close. Or Kittleson was in my second group. Stantec kind of stood above. Would it be fair for people to give their impressions of what they read, or we want to try and pitch these people, or just kind of winnow down the group to a reasonable number to have an appointment?
I mean, I think some comment, you guys, I think, thank you and kudos for spending the time with these documents. And I do think sort of any, you know, sharing of any comments you had or reactions outside of the numbers could be helpful.
I agree that, you know, taking a look at someone that's local and has done work locally, where Kittleson did that section, I believe, from Georgetown to Newbury. And then Stantec did the Newburyport section, I believe. So there is some.
Actually, the opposite, Dave.
Yeah,
but-
Oh, did I get them wrong?
we know
Okay.
what you meant though, David.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, is a good thing. Or pluses for those 2.
Yeah, and I guess, Kristen, maybe I'd defer to you on some of that. To me, Stantec must be a smaller company. Some of these companies look like they were huge.
Stantec's actually a huge company.
Is it? Okay. Because maybe it didn't come across that way in the proposal. I was most impressed with their, I'll call it the challenge map. I found very interesting where they had the vernal pools and the turtles and the everything kind of laid out. and so, which to me, I think reflected like a total understanding of the challenge. And that meant more to me than anything, as well as, you know, they are working on the southern portion. So we've seen these people and there's familiarity there. And again, some of the, what I thought were bigger companies just didn't seem like they had that kind of intimate, you know, some of them were on the South Shore, some of them were, you know, Western Mass, et cetera. So that's why I certainly lean towards them. It's just from a common standpoint. I'm looking at my reference that Martin Burns. It was very interesting, Martin Burns, because if you look at a map, if you look at some of those maps, that is the most direct way.
Yep.
I actually rode that trail on Sunday, and I'm a big fan. It's just
So question for you, since you rode that trail,
yes.
is it waterbound at all from the highway to where that power station is? Where it would come out?
So again, it's an old rail line. There's water on both sides, you know, in a lot of places. There was, I only think, one bridge, and it was probably 3 feet wide. It was I thought it was amazing. I mean, it just I've got this vision now of, I also last week rode over the Whittier Bridge, and what I envision is what the engineers are talking about in terms of running up 95 alongside the highway. I think is just them putting, their definition would be just putting in a Jersey barrier and there's a trail on the other side with a fence. And that certainly wasn't my vision, because the Martin Burns was, I didn't see any wildlife, but it was just very similar to the Georgetown to Byfield section in terms of, you know, it's probably about the width of the two telephone poles. I don't think I went on Sunday deliberately because I don't think you can hunt on Sunday, but the firing range was open, so that's a bit unnerving. But you know, most people I think were hands off to it, and I'd like to see us give that a fair shake. Like, you know, could you really do it? Because that really is a rail trail. You're in the woods. There's woods all around you, and it just was pleasant. You couldn't hear cars, as opposed to if you're on the side of 95, that there's nothing pleasant at all about that. That becomes a commuter road, not a pleasant ride.
I would chime in. John, I rode Georgetown to Byfield yesterday and hadn't been on that in a while. And the similarity, I live across the street from Martin Burns. I can add a few things about crossings and flooding, but the if the continuity went all the way from Georgetown to Highfield Road or the train station, boy, that would be an amazing experience. They, in terms of just, you know, without getting too much into solutioning mode, right? Because that would be an option that I think we would be highly desirable, meaning Martin Burns. But it would, you know, if there's one of these if some of these firms are well versed in how you deal with like a state wildlife management area, presentation to constituents, us, you know, coming up with you know, a compromise or a way to make something that's highly desirable work without having one group, you know, sort of be the reason to not have it would be great.
I did kind of Google it.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like, what I was looking for was this kind of hard line. You cannot put a rail
Right.
through a wildlife management area, and I did not see any of that. In fact, I saw rail trails. I Googled rail trails in wildlife management areas,
Yeah.
and they came up. You know, it was just like, okay, so I can see that it might be a whole different permitting.
Right.
Well, if
challenge.
the Georgetown to Newbury section abuts the wildlife management area, that whole area. And we've always, it's kind of a rule that starting in October, late October, you wear orange until January 1st. And it's just, you know, we just know to do that. and everything worked out. No one's been shot as far as I know. So
Okay,
In this
Um,
case, Dave,
uh,
you mean the Crane
yeah, yeah,
Wildlife? Yeah.
yeah.
And so Martin Burns is, yeah, the same thing. I mean, I've been through there on mountain bikes along that whole stretch in Martin Burns when the hunting's been active, and it's not contentious. It's more just a preference for them not to have people,
Yeah.
going
Though,
through and wearing certainly orange coloring. But
as you know, and I talked to, one of the officers one time, and he said, it's here for your use too.
Right.
And the main rule was, don't walk around with a bell and try to scare off deer. Just mind your own business, drive through, and everything will be fine. So,
So
Um,
just to like, maybe add, clarification. At the moment, it's off limits. Like at the moment, this project has been told by the Wildlife Management Agency, that it's not allowed. So just wanted to state that I've been at a meeting where that was told. So that is why the Board of Boston trail map shows the Scotland Road, alignment. But as you've all read in the RFQ, I do think looking at the feasibility of alternatives is part of the discussion is of furthering to keep Martin Burns on the table for all of the reasons you've all just stated. There are many people over the decades who agree with that position. And it just is a very important part of this project to have a more thorough discussion about that has all of, the important input at the table. Because pretty much, I think I've said this before too, but pretty much every meeting I've had about the Board of Boston Trail has different people at the table. And you just don't, you're sort of, some people have been there a long time, some people are brand new. What's the input? Who are the parties? All of that kind of leads to my next comment, which is I do think, and when I was looking at the proposals, I'm very interested to make sure we thoroughly review what their outreach and engagement skills are, like who are the people coming together, what kinds of complicated projects have they done.
Yep.
This segment has every complicated piece we can imagine, including common pasture, including alternatives, including, busy highways, all of it. So I didn't actually fill out the scorecard, but as I've been reading through, I have been looking for documented experience there. And I know some of the parties in some of these teams, but certainly not all of them. I do think potentially there's, everyone shared references in the proposals. I haven't taken any steps to, call anyone up or ask questions, but that's something we can talk more about. And then the last thing I would say is we have been working with Stantec. The only public outreach that I've been a part of for the Georgetown to Byfield segment work, and granted, I missed all of the beginning of that work, but there was only that design public hearing that I know some of you attended in May. So I don't know if the same representative, who's been a part of that project would be our point person going forward. But I guess I'll just say I haven't seen Stantec staff as a part of that project be very, I haven't seen them facilitate a public meeting, for instance. So that's a question I would have. I do.
Kristen,
Yep.
can I speak to that?
Please.
I had to take a minute to get my handwritten form because I knew as soon as I saw what is shared on the screen, I did not give Stantec a 12, if that's what that says. And there's a couple other ones And it could have been entry error on my part, but I actually had Santec as a 10. And I marked them down in public engagement just because of things I found out on the internet, various projects around. And then from the local people, I heard they were very, very good, but it was rare they met a time deadline. So those are the two. So I had a 10 instead of a 12. I'm not sure how that happened. And then there's a couple that are different, like Bowman. I had 11 instead of 12, but that's not that big a deal. And I think with the last one with Pear, if that's how you pronounce it, I had a 12 instead of 11, but I think I was leaning towards 11, so that I may have entered that. But I just wanted to stand on record that I had given Santec a 10 because I marked them down via things in my research, because I'm not as qualified as the rest of you to speak specifically to our projects requirements and fit and parameters.
That could have also been my mistake, Sid, so don't worry about it.
Well, maybe if I hadn't waited till the last minute and saw your email and felt guilty.
Me too.
No worries.
It's Sean here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I only had two perfect 12. Stantec was one of them. The reason that I picked the two that I did is because they're the only two that actually mentioned National Grid as somebody that they would have to include in the community engagement portion of the project. I'm a little surprised Kittleson didn't mention it, but they get a -1 for that. And I think probably just to echo what Kristen was saying, the community engagement portion of this is probably going to be the most challenging aspect of the entire thing. It looks like, for example, they all have at least an outline of how they want to do the trail, or what they perceive the trail to be. But doing something that actually would be, the best alternative, even if it is, say, going through Martin Burns, is going to require a little bit more than just putting together a design. It's actually going to take some convincing for people at, say, wildlife management, etc. Just as a heads up, since we're all talking about riding the trails, I've been out myself. I did take a ride along the rail trail from Byfield Center to Highfield Street, just to check that out. It was kind of interesting because I used the Map by Walk app because I wanted to see how long it was. And I forgot to reset it on the way back. And so when I got back home, the funny part about it is it fills in that piece with a straight line, and it literally laid right on top of the utility corridor. So, I mean, it's clearly the most direct route. It fits within the definition of what a rail trail is. And then I would just add one more thing. I was up in, I also went over the, I forget the name of the trail that goes from the Park and Ride Newburyport over to Salisbury. And that thing is just amazing. But it does show you that if we want to put a bridge across 95, it's certainly possible. It's not something we should shy away from if we think that's the right thing to do. And then I went on along the Ghost Trail, which is in Amesbury. It's a utility corridor, but the difference is the trail is actually aligned to the side of the corridor. And why that's advantageous is there's a lot of cover in terms of trees. There's absolutely nothing in the utility corridor that we have here so far designated. So that's going to be a pretty warm walk, even though you know, it's relatively short, I guess, but still, you know, we got to consider that in our design, I would say.
My
Providing some
wife
sort
would
of shade.
certainly appreciate the fact that you said that, Sean. Like,
Yeah.
why is the ghost trail, the power lines are over there and we're here, over here under trees? So I get you. And I think just again, not to beat the Martin Burns thing, I think at some point we could also latch into the Martin Burns either at Highland Street, because it was like being Kevin Costner walking out of the cornfields. I got to the end of the trail and it literally was the gate to get on the commuter rail. It was just an
Yeah.
amazing. You just delivered right to the train station. So if we were to cut over Scotland Road and get on at Highland, you know, that was only like probably a 1 mile. And I don't think that's Martin Burns anymore, actually. I think there's some private land there, but that was a nice little ride as well. But anyway, yeah. So these are all good,
Oh.
Kristen. But it sounds like in your mind, we need a little more focus on the community outreach thing. Or should we all go back and reread that, or maybe get people in and that's what we focus on and make our selection based on the interviews with their community engagement?
Well, quickly, I will add to what I said earlier. All of these companies are so qualified that if we, for example, felt like Sandtech was the best for us, as long as we're mindful about needing to push them to be more realistic on the deadlines they give us, and to let them know we need more public engagement than their other projects, I would be perfectly happy as long as we're aware of where the companies don't shine as much as on their other good points. So I would not veto a single company that's submitted.
Kristen, can we have like in person or some other, conversation with Stantec and one or two others, but not necessarily do it can we do say two, see how it goes and then decide if we want a third, or do we have to follow sort of a formal, we're eliminating everybody else and we have to, we're going forward with just these. Is there enough talking within that community that if we sort of, start chipping away at it in an incremental fashion, that some would find out and think they're eliminated and it would cause confusion? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we, again, just speaking from my recent experience only,
Yeah.
which was one project, we did not inform all the applicants until we've gone through the in-person interview with two of the teams. So I think we can let them know we're in the process of deciding, and, I think we wait until we make a selection until we let everybody know where they
Right.
stand.
Yeah.
If that makes
I
sense.
guess I'm asking in the sense that I would vote to proceed ahead with two, maybe a third of in-person, see how we feel, and go from there, while maybe in parallel, if you and or others can do some reference checks or calls out to other town planners, maybe whether that's only local ones or goes beyond the North Shore, I don't know, but that would be sort of where my mind is right now.
I wonder about this idea. I guess I'm not clear on my top two right now, despite the voting. But again, I didn't vote, so I'm trusting all of you and your review for sure. So I think this is important. I wonder if there are maybe, 3 or 5 questions that we could identify to get some more, information about like our priorities, kind of like Sid was saying, like knowing the things that we think are going to be most important about this project, like timeliness, like outreach skills, thoroughness of the team. One question I had in reviewing them and just to think about, I think when, I know each of these firms a little bit, but not thoroughly. I don't even know if I think Stantec is a national, possibly international company and huge, like I said before, but I don't actually know that specifically how they all rank. So if we could identify maybe, our top 3 or 4 issues or questions we want to be sure of. I wonder about some reference checks. Maybe we could each make one call of reference for each of the teams. I don't know if there's any we definitely want to rule out. I mean, they're all in the 10 to 11 category. Some of them got 12 across the board. They're all pretty even right now. But because we have a little more time and because there are certain things we feel, I personally, and I was saying this to Sadie earlier, because the fact we're a new committee and because the fact that Sadie and I are a small shop with a lot of demands, I personally feel very strongly that the team we hired is timely and organized, and they're reaching out to us with a monthly update without us having to remind them and ask them and remember to remind them again. We really want a good project manager for this project. It's such an amazing opportunity to do this work. I think that everybody's busy, right? Like every person at every firm is very busy. So we really want to make sure that this team of people we hire is able to prioritize this with their team. One thing I've seen cause some problems is when they're subs, sub-consultants. That just kind of, it adds a layer of complexity with the scope and the contract stuff, but it also adds a layer of like, oh, they were waiting for this and now they're waiting for this and now it potentially adds, delays. That's how I've seen that work. Those are some other thoughts. I'll stop talking.
I like the idea of maybe dividing and conquering, and we each at least start with, of the 7, we each can call a reference in terms of agreeing on what are the 3 to 5 key issues or questions. I think I hear timeliness, the project management side, timeliness. I think the community outreach is key. I almost would love to put them through like a little bit more of what, maybe saying what we would ask in an interview where we're, maybe a problem solving type question, right? And maybe it is the Martin Burns one. I don't know, and have them give us their thoughts based on limited, possibly limited information or not much research on that. I guess I'm going into project management, community outreach, and then, what obstacles do you see, or what challenges? Maybe we call it challenges instead, and have them give more than what they answered in the RFP. But that's
I
just where I'm
just
at.
kind of threw up there, if you guys can see the interview questions we had when we had the follow-up with the finalists. So again, kind of similar to what you're saying, Jim, it's sort of like just a little bit deeper, right? Like why should we hire you? you know,
Right.
what do you think's gonna be most challenging? Like, are they gonna come up with the same things we think? How much, you know, you sort of get a sense how much, I think the proposals have some differences on this too, but like, how much time did people actually spend digging into it? Some of those like challenge and, you know, barrier maps revealed that. I can't even remember whose it was right now, but they had an alternative of a line of a trail through Martin Burns, but through the top little chunk of it. Did you guys, does anyone remember which proposal that was? Instead of the utility corridor, it was still in Martin Burns, but it was up like on the edge of it.
Mm.
Thought that was interesting. Some people identified that Orchard Street is potentially an alternative. I think we could all kind of give a quick reaction, like Orchard Street's too thin and windy and like wouldn't really work, but you know, let's look at that, right?
Yeah,
No, I don't ride on Orchard Street anymore.
Yeah, scary to even walk, I think.
Just one more thing about Stan Tech. I know this is something I did pick out of it. On page 31 of their proposal, they say continued coordination with the Massachusetts Natural Heritage Program will be critical to determine if an alignment through the Martin H. Burns WMA is possible. If so, it is likely to impact that impact to priority habitat of rare species would be greater than 2 acres, requiring an MESA conservation management permit, which strikes me as maybe something that I'm sure nobody else came that close to having that kind of detailed info, to the point of knowing what permit to pull in Martin Burns. So
I wonder what the
Um,
difference would be between the permitting on that and the permitting from Georgetown to Byfield, because it's similar, similar type situations, you know, following a river, following a stream, woods, so.
Yeah, you
yeah,
have
it's
to
probably
get
the
through the
same.
same permitting wherever you are. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
heritage species are significant. I think
Okay.
Stantec's experienced that with the turtle habitat and the Byfield of Georgetown. So yeah, that makes sense that they would have that at the forefront as something they need to make sure is at the table.
Yeah, and I'm happy to call on those references too. If you just, I mean, maybe just if you just want to send me an email with a couple of names on it, I'll give them some calls.
So by
That's-
calling the references, we're calling the city of Peabody, the town of Topsfield, someone that's already used these groups, or what are you saying by references? Not calling the company directly, because they will sugarcoat whatever answer they have, I assume.
Well, they gave references in their proposals.
Oh, they
so it's
did?
The
Okay.
people that I think that was required. I don't know if
Yeah,
anyone can
no, I
confirm that. I
think
definitely
they all,
saw it.
they would, it was towards the back of all of them.
Yes, there's a ton of, you know, everyone had like a listing of who they work with, but I don't know if they gave phone numbers and stuff like that.
They did. I think
Okay.
each of them gave three references
Okay.
with
Sorry
the
about that.
phone number and email. Yeah, no, it's a good question. Yeah, it wouldn't be necessarily appropriate to call someone they worked with, but didn't have on their reference list.
You're saying that's inappropriate? Or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we should call the people they said were references,
Yeah, I'm always a
knowing
little,
that
yeah.
they're not gonna put someone who.
right. I'd like to hear from the people they don't put down.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
yeah, but I get it. Did the interview questions you showed for PI feasibility, not to necessarily say we're going to decide on a set of questions right now, but were those shared ahead of the interview, or those were like spontaneous on the spot guided? Did they guide the interview without the firm coming in for the interview knowing what
The latter, yeah. So we worked on the questions as a group.
Yeah.
And then made sure that the same questions were asked of each candidate and took notes and then shared it
Yeah.
back around. So yeah, I think it would be a reasonable way to divvy the work, if you will, but make sure we're being as consistent as we can.
Right.
So here are the questions. I mean, often, I don't know, you've all probably hired people, but you know, you might get into a conversation and go down some other path, but at least knowing that like these 3 or 4 questions were asked. Again, this is an idea, but if it's a step we don't feel we need to do, I don't want to make this more complicated then.
I wonder if I could ask, do we think that we have enough information at this point to at least cull the list a bit, you know, maybe eliminate, you know, maybe pick 3 or just pick a number and say, okay, we'll do this next phase, but with only half the, rather than 7, 4 or something like that. Or do we think we really need to go through another round with all 7 people? What's the sense of that? I mean, I feel like we have enough information to, I think we could get it down to 3 right now. And then follow up with the references and then maybe get 1 or 2 in for, just to go over kind of you know, just to put out a proposal for how we may proceed from here, but can I get some feedback from that?
Yeah. And Sadie, do you mind, sorry, I stopped your screen sharing, but will you put that back up for us? Thank you.
And Sid, I'm sorry, do you want to tell me your scores again, just so we got it how you wanted?
It looks fine. It's very slightly different, but only by 1 in those, I think the 2 that I had at 11 instead of 12. I was going back and forth. So I'm happy with what I'm seeing up there. 10 for Stantec and 12 for the others, I think.
Okay.
Ty
Sounds
and
good.
Bond, I had 11, as well as Bowman, but it could go either way on both of those.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
I'll just leave it as it is for now to avoid confusion.
So I guess I would ask to answer your question, Sean, which I think is a good one. Do people want to make sure they're comfortable with their scoring, or is everybody like good with the scoring you did? And this is where our numbers end up.
I mean, I gave 12, mine added up to 12 for all of them, but I was going really by, I wasn't doing a relative comparison. So, you know, I would maybe redo it. And I did come in here thinking, you know, there may be the intangibles that aren't necessarily reflected in the document, you know, would be a way to differentiate much more. So, but, I'm 2 of the 3 matched my top 3 that I put in my notes below. So that's why I'm comfortable starting with two of the firms like Stantec and Kittleson, but that's where I am.
I think I'm going to confess to some kind of, maybe I approached it wrong. I mean, we're here to support Kristen and Sadie. I might have skewed some of my answers to what I thought was the better solution. And so kind of the reality of this conversation here is, you know, we're supposed to be propping up Kristen and Sadie. So it might be more important at this point, because I think all the presentations addressed areas like timeliness and priority. So I think we have those answers already. But I don't think I use them in my scoring. You know, so it's almost like, do we want to go back with that in mind and then rescore? Or is it more important maybe to give Kristen time to and Sadie time to go through and score their own? I mean, I think that's our purpose in life, is to help you get this project done. And if we like someone who wants to run over the turtles instead of not run over the turtles, that's not fair. That's not what we're here for. Because I specifically remember many of them talking about running certain outreach programs, et cetera, et cetera. So the answers might already be there, but it's just how we score them. I think I would confess to not scoring, basically because it all sounded like it was great. Yeah, we're going to reach out to the community and bring everybody together and all that stuff. So how do you peel that piece of the onion off to get down to, did you really do it, or was it, undercover darkness on a Thursday night that you had the public hearing? I
Yeah. Yeah, and I think of the time I spent, I was with Jim, and like everybody looks great. Like every one of these firms have amazing, smart, professional, skilled people, and they, particularly the technical pieces, I have no issues thinking that there would be anything technically not in terms of permitting, survey work, environmental constraints, knowledge of, what good multimodal trail work is, all of that very much parallel from my review. So again, that's where I do think a little bit of the softer skills is where there might be differences. And that's often something you could either get from talking to someone about how it worked, or getting them to come talk with us, and just you get a feel for it.
So Kristen, not to circle back to the references and having to use only the ones listed, but I guess I'm looking at it as, there's already, in terms of the trail on the north part of the North Shore, we're kind of the last pieces to be filled in. And so if we take the other 10 adjacent parts that have been done and the firms that worked on them, so Boxford to Georgetown, Georgetown up to here, Stantec with Just Design, the Clipper City Trail, or some other Newburyport stuff, like we're not, in terms of the firms that worked on them, those all what I just mentioned, you're saying we can't go to those town planners and say, or other people, on the committees there, and say, how did it go? Did you have any concerns? Would you hire them again? All that usual stuff. Is that out of, like, not, I know we can quietly do that on our own, but are you saying it's not suggested to go make those kinds of calls?
I don't think there's a problem with that.
Yeah.
That happens all the time, right? And I think that's, I think Sid being on Coastal Trails Coalition, you probably had a couple conversations with people. I think that makes sense. I talk to folks in Newburyport all the time, and I've, have some knowledge of teams they've worked with on different projects, and just sort of anecdotally how to go. I do think some of these firms are big, so you may just get very different people on every single project, and I think that we can't do anything about that. But we should know who the project manager is, and that's helpful to talk with other people. So I don't have any problem with that, Jim. That's like a one-on-one. There's no quorum of a committee. There's no they can choose not to talk with you, or or however they prefer to respond.
If nothing else, their willingness to talk would be information for us.
Right.
If they were very forthcoming and wanted to share, and we had to shut them up, that might be a plus. But if they hemmed and hawed and said the bare minimum, Or didn't admit they didn't know something, just tried to, you know. I did try, because of the coastal trails and working with other people, I did try to get more information than it seemed like the people I was talking to wanted to give me. So I think they were trying to be very diplomatic. So good luck with that. If you go to the town planners, maybe you'll have better luck than I did. But they did say, with this great response that we have, that you know, it's a lot of blessings, and we just need to look for the right fit.
Yeah. Okay. So,
So we,
not
I,
to
I-
late chair that, I'll let you chairs.
so do you think we want to, do you think the next step is to try to go down to 3 or to reassess and go through each one in a different thought process?
Why don't we vote? Just say, I'll pose a question. Do you think we should at this point reduce the list to 3 candidates? Anybody want to second that motion?
I would second it, just with the qualification that we're reducing it, but we still have the option of going back to others. Right? We're not eliminating, we're
Yeah.
just,
Right.
we're starting with this as a first group.
I think,
Well,
in my opinion on that is, I'm just going to go back to, I really think it's important for us to hear Kristen's answer. What if we were to knock someone out that just knocks her socks off? And I don't think that's our place at this point. Because we're here to support.
Okay.
I'll just go back to that. Again, I just went back and looked at Stantec's references, and it's an interesting document. Now I lost it, but literally, it's like some project manager at the state level who I can't see us, like Sid says, you know, picking someone, the guy picking up the phone to talk to someone from Newbury. Yeah, just. This might not be as easy as we think it's going to be.
Right, because there's a lot of politics. We'll never know what's behind.
That too.
Right, yeah, what they may want to say something, but you know, you never know.
Yeah, yeah. So in fact, I just found the document. So the 3 references, DCR trails. So this is Mass Department of Conservation, some guy in Mass Government, Gateway City Projects, someone, Gateway Cities, that's for Western Mass. MassDOT Trail Program Manager. And kind of in my mind, I was thinking, oh, we're going to call like the Danvers town planner, you know, and who would probably pick up the phone. But those 3 references, in my mind, I just see it as you play phone tag a couple of times, and maybe you shoot an email.
Yeah, and who they chose as references probably.
Well, and I guess
Interpret something.
I guess it makes sense because it's someone that would be, you know, kind of high up the food chain, but high up the food chain is also going to be hard to get to, because you're not going to be high up the food chain if you're just taking random reference calls. Let me pull up another one just for laughs.
Okay, so it
I
sounds
think
like,
on the, if we're still discussing Sean's motion, just my 2 cents on it is, this scorecard is important because it will be a public document when it's complete. I think this is a draft, but it will be a public document, the scoring. So I guess I would request that the committee, after this discussion, confirm, go through again and confirm back to Sadie your scores. And then if this is okay with everyone, I'd like to run the numbers again. So be very specific about the criteria that was in the RFQ. in your votes. Because we need to, this is, again, this is meant to be an objective scoring, this component of the numbers. If we end up there with a top three, I certainly would support us focusing on those three to get the next level of information. I guess from what I'm hearing, I'm not sure the scores are finalized yet. Unless you all feel like you're done.
No, I think having this conversation gives us a sort of a pathway to say, okay, yeah, we should take another look, like refresh everything and take another look and focus in on those elements and then make a second look at each group. Because I was looking at some and I'm thinking to myself, well, they seem like a huge group and they have all the, it's not international, but it's a large group and maybe they're not as focused on the North Shore. And then, and so I was using that as reference. So I think that maybe that's what we should do is, just go through it, run another numbers on it and see what we think. And you hone in on three.
I think the numbers is important because the scorecard can be requested to be viewed and shared with everybody. And that's part of our process. And then I think notes are also important.
One
different layer.
idea would be to pick the 4 companies that have greater than 10. So then we would be looking at the majority, 4 out of the 7, and it would eliminate the lower 3, even as we know they're probably perfectly fine. And then we just have 4 to focus in on. That is another approach.
Yep, I mean, I
would
think
be
setting
fine
a
with
threshold.
that.
Yeah, I agree. Setting a threshold or some cutoff point.
Yeah, my interest is, I just want to see us moving this forward.
Yeah.
You could spend a lot of time. I read I read every one of those reports 3 times, and it took quite a long time. So I can do it again, certainly, but I think I've got enough information to get to a point where we can maybe, yeah, I think we should call references and try to schedule a in-person meeting with at least 2 of these guys. And if we put it off till the next meeting, we're starting to run into, so I'm just concerned in terms of project-wise, can we keep this thing rolling? I'm sorry, I'm not hearing anybody. Did
Mm.
anyone hear me?
Yeah,
We're all
no, I
thinking.
understand the deadline. I think based on Kristen, how you started the meeting, it sounds like we don't even have to have the final pick by the 30th, but we can be down to 2 or 3. Is that?
No,
if
we need to have
we-
a selection by September
We need
30th.
to have a selection. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Sorry, yeah.
I thought I know we didn't need to have a contract by then, but we have to have a selection for the select board.
So if we went and we all looked at it again and sort of started from new, and I know that we've gone over this, and then come up with a selection date for all our numbers. And then let's say Wednesday of next week, we all put in our final bids for what we think are the best one. And then use that as a blueprint to go on. And so we've sort of covered that section, or what's the best way to move forward?
I'd like to do that, Dave, just because like I said, I wasn't doing relative. I was
Yep.
more saying,
Yep.
well, we said 4 is highly advantageous and it seems like they met it. There might be something that's not called out or something, somebody may have gone into more detail, but I felt like they still had, even if they didn't have much detail, they still seem to be in that category. So yes, I think if we say next Wednesday, I think I'm going to take the liberty to be now a little more relative And then
So-
we'll go through it a second time. I'll stop.
As
there.
far as the committee goes, or as far as the planning board goes, can we just send in our best picks, again, review it, send it in? And on Wednesday, I don't know if we have to have a meeting just when they all come in, or is that something we should do again? Should we plan on a quick meeting? Or what do you think the next phase is after we review this again?
I have just a thought. I can compile again all the averages of the new scores, and then maybe I could like send out like, here are the top 3.
Perfect.
And then do we want to we can delegate like who,
Yeah.
are we still calling references? Maybe we could delegate who's going to call who, and then maybe meet again and after doing all that, or is that too much to do without having a meeting?
No, I think that'd be the best way to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, what if you got, if it's the same score, fine, if you, really, like, use the thing, be as objective as possible in your scores. Like, everyone might get a 12, that's okay. And then if you have notes about other input, or if your score changes, fine. Get that all into Sadie maybe a week from today. So that's Tuesday at 1 o'clock. We can compile the scores again. That's a quantitative document. And then if the committee, I think Sean's vote was, their motion was top 4. Is that, Sean, what you said?
Yeah, we can go with 4. That's fine.
Or
'cause,
top
I mean,
3, whatever.
we have, I mean, there were 4 I could see that seem to stand above the rest, just from the spreadsheet.
But I
So,
think the
but,
spreadsheet might change a little
Okay.
bit. Maybe,
Yep.
I don't know, maybe not.
and I guess that what I'm saying is I'm willing to, whatever the spreadsheet says, let's pick 4, the top 4 and go with that. I mean,
Yeah,
unfortunately, all 7 of them are great. You know, but-
I can look to see if there's like a clear 3, but if there's like 2 and then 2 under those that are tied or something, we can maybe go from there.
I just don't think going through all the references for all 7 of these is really going to be that realistic. But
Okay,
so that's why I'm kind of advocating to let's reduce it a bit. I mean, I mean, I was blown away by the quality of these things. It's very difficult to do this evaluation. It took quite a long time, but when you go through with a fine-tooth comb, you realize, that those answers are there, those questions are there for a reason. It's like some of the proposals, for example, I'll just throw one out there. I really thought Kittleson would have, I tried to rate them better, but I just could not verify the projects that they had worked on were really appropriate and that they actually had completed them. And if you think about what that means, there's 3 or 4 different places in their proposal that you have to look to get that information together. So I definitely advocate for, going through them pretty, there's, I mean, the other side of it, I guess, is this is what they do for a living. So they're presenting themselves in the best possible light. So some of what they're putting there is not necessarily appropriate from our point of view. So there's that aspect of it as well. But I'll be happy to, I didn't know we were going to include notes, so I could put my notes in. I don't know if that'll help anybody, but because sometimes more information isn't better, but.
Yeah, it was nice to have Sid's background on
Yeah.
Stantec, so that was key.
Right. But my thought on that is what we're really doing at this point is evaluating, nothing against, I think it's great that we have this inside information. And when we make that decision, I think we'll be using that kind of stuff. But if we could just focus on getting the spreadsheet, because this is something we could say, okay, we had 5 guys go through 7 these things, and this is their ratings, and we picked these 4. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to question that. Whereas if we start to say things like, well, we talked to somebody who worked with Stan Tech and they said this, well, that's great, but did they actually do any community outreach? What did they say in their proposal? So again, I'm kind of a stickler for process, only because a process can drive these things to a halt if we get hung up on it too much. But if you let the process play out, you can it's got to go, it's got to hit those steps eventually if you kind of stay focused on moving it like one step at a time. I'm trying to actually jump the gun a bit here by whittling this down, but that's fine. We can wait. We'll do this. We can give it a week if you think those evaluations aren't quite up to par yet. That's fine. Obviously.
Right, we can still take the whittle down approach, but we don't have to do it today. Is
Yeah.
that what we're saying?
So
That's
redo
fine.
this.
Yep.
We take another pass each of the scores, add notes if we have them by next Tuesday. Is that what I heard, Kristen, you said a week. We also tossed out Wednesday. So I would vote for Tuesday just to keep it moving. But
Yeah, Tuesday is great.
we send that to Sadie. She'll recompile everything. She will then give us, Sadie, I guess your output would be to tell us what the finding is. It may point to a top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
We can do that all by email because there's no deliberation going on there, right? And then would we have to reconvene to say now we're moving on to the reference, to review the finding and move on to the references for those top 3 or 4? Just want to make sure I'm clear on after we turn everything in and you send out everything, what's the next step there?
I think if everybody's comfortable with that process, we probably ought to vote on that. And that would kind of cover whether that makes that a legitimate step. I mean, if we agree that the scoring system is a good way of doing it, if we agree that what we want coming out of the relook is now that we've chatted about different things, we've heard, from Kristen where she needs us to focus probably more. But I think if we vote on it, we could do, let's, the score is there. If there's 3 obvious, then we move forward with the 3 obvious. And I don't know if we want to get to the point where, and here are the 4 questions we want to ask the references, or I did kind of a side project here. Some of the other TEAGs I had up, and it was indeed like local planners. And I'm like, all right, well, that's a good sign. I think that's the kind of conversation that would be us like asking it for Kristen, like, all right, do these guys support you? Do they give you priority? Did you have to leave 7 messages? That kind of horror story, I think, is a great output that we're not going to pull out of these proposals. The proposals are going to say, oh, I'm looking at some of the things, and the person might not know how to spell Byfield for all we know. I like the idea that there's at least the second set of things I looked at had very specific people who had worked with the company. And point taken, it could be anybody in the company, but I think it's a great way of looking at it. But in terms of whether we need to meet or not, I think if we vote now while we're meeting, I think that would cover us. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, if you all do this, get it back by next Tuesday, you're voting. Numbers, scoring, any comments, get that back to Sadie and me. We'll compile it, and then I think I can communicate back out to all of you, we can, of top three. If it,
Yep.
top 3 or 4, depending, we'll
Yep.
put it that way. Or 2, could be 2, right?
Yep.
And then maybe, let's touch base at that point about whether or when we need another meeting.
Okay.
Because maybe we'll end up with 2, and Sadie and I can call these planners in other towns and have discussions, and expedite things a
Yep.
little
Yep.
further.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay,
And I'll just add, again, when I was looking through the reports, one thing I found really useful is see if I could actually identify completed projects. Now, a lot of them are like working on projects, so they're scheduled to be completed or whatever, but the ones that were completed, I could see how long it took them to do it, that sort of thing. The things that are still in process, honestly, even though they're great, they might be the greatest rail trail project ever, perfect, exactly what we want, but it's unfortunately not completed, so
Yeah.
I couldn't take that into account,
Yeah, I
that
noticed
sort
that.
of thing.
as well.
Yeah, and you'll find that it really does whittle people down. That in particular is very difficult to get out of those reports, but it's there. I'll put that in my notes as well, because I'll go through and do it.
So do we have to formally put this, what we just discussed, as a proposal and vote on it? To just,
Okay, I think it's
Or-
great. I didn't hear that we were establishing another meeting, though. I think, which we do have to do, I think.
okay, so we
But
don't.
yeah.
So-
Let's, I mean, that would be the deadline, so that we've got to have everything done before whatever our next meeting date is. Do we want to meet again Tuesday?
I thought we were just saying that what was on the table was, or the proposed next steps were we do a refinement of our scoring, add notes, send to Sadie by next Tuesday. Then she will, with Kristen, recompile and send out the
Uh,
results to the group with the top 2, 3, or 4. And at that point, they will touch base with us about whether we need another meeting to schedule. So we're not going to worry, focus.
So we could do like if same idea, we could do 2 weeks from Tuesday. I don't know if that's pushing it to have a second meeting just to confirm these people, or if it's one of those things we've got down to, if they figure something out next week and we can get 2 people to show up that following week, I guess September 8th through 12th, we can make a decision then.
you don't have to set a meeting date now, but it's certainly not a bad idea, so, just,
Well, for posting purposes, it would be more convenient.
yeah.
Do we want to post a meeting for next Wednesday just to get it posted?
But I think that may be pushing time wise, because if we get all our stuff in by Tuesday, then they're going to do their evaluations. So it'd be pushing them to have everything done on their end by Wednesday.
Why don't would Thursday work, the 4th? We could do a Zoom again,
Sure.
or, I
Sure.
don't know, if this format is working for people or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine.
Thursday, the 4th. Sounds good.
And we'll try to get as far as we can before then. And if we don't need the meeting for some reason, we don't have to have it. This isn't a public hearing or anything.
Oh, okay. This does not need to be publicly posted and stuff.
No, it has to be posted. It just doesn't, if you don't have it, it's fine.
Okay.
Meaning if we decided we didn't need it
It gets canceled.
on Wednesday, we just cancel it.
Okay.
So you moved it to Thursday. Thursday sounds great, which would be next, the 4th. So tentatively the 4th at what time?
I'm here all day, so. I guess I do have a meeting in the morning, so, sometime midday or afternoon would work for me, but it depends on you guys.
Well, this time is okay with me. Did this work for everybody? Did this work for everybody or?
Yeah,
Maybe
I
this-
liked it. I was able to get a lot done this morning, so it seemed like a good.
1 o'clock onwards, good for me. So,
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and if I have to,
You have to find a truck?
no, I just. Right now I'm able to do it because of timing and people's trips. So otherwise I don't know what goes on Thursday. Usually I have time, so I can work it out. I'll just do a late lunch or whatever. So 1 o'clock sounds perfect.
Did
Okay.
you want to change it, Dave?
No. It's just that I'd probably try to keep it down to an hour. But if I had to leave early, I think that would be okay. So I'm game
An
for,
hour is good.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm game for 1 o'clock next week. I can sort of work my lunch into it.
Excellent. Kristen, is there gonna be a line for you on the scoring?
Sorry, is it what?
Is there gonna be a line for you on scoring?
Oh, if you'd like me to do the scoring, I will. I wasn't going to, but, I wasn't going to do one formally. Since I'm not formally a member. Why don't we do it too? We'll do it too. Sound good?
Yeah,
Yep.
All right.
I like that.
Okay.
I don't want to put you in an awkward situation, but you're the professional in the room. That's a
So-
compliment. That's a compliment.
Well,
Learning as we go.
Yeah.
And we're also-
you're
we're not gonna weight yours more than ours necessarily.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because it's still gonna be a quantitative, like objective.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
Average.
I think,
Yeah.
I think we won't have names on the scoring. I don't think we need names, just
Mm.
for the final document. That's a public document. I'll just, usually how we do it. It's just
Okay.
be
Okay, that's
objective.
even better. That's good.
So I make a proposal to plan on meeting by Zoom on September 4th at 1 p.m.
second.
All in favor?
I
Okay.
Did we ever get a second for Sean, or is that still on the table?
Oh. No, I think, you know what, I can retract it.
Yeah, I was just to clean that up, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Fine.
I think we were in discussion for a while.
Yeah,
We need to vote on which day we need our submissions into you, confirmed final evaluations.
we said by Tuesday.
But we
yeah, I
don't,
think that
we
needs to
don't
be
need
part
to
of the
vote on
motion,
that. We can
yeah.
just,
Yeah.
Fine, yeah,
Good.
good.
Good work, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
likewise,
I
good work.
really appreciate it. I think we will keep shooting towards keeping meetings an hour to make best use of everybody's time. But this is, that we are all, I certainly am learning as I go, and I appreciate just all the input because it's
Excellent.
gonna be a good project.
It is.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
So, yeah,
Okay. See you.
to
Everybody gets to
27.
work.
See you soon. Have a
Great.
good week.
Thanks.
Have a
All right.
nice Labor Day
All right.
weekend, everybody.
All right.
Yep, see you soon.
Get out on your
Okay.
bikes.
All right, yeah.
All right.
We still have to have a field trip to Groveland.
Yes.
I haven't been there yet.
Yeah,
That'll be good.
I think
September.
it's exactly what we're gonna have, I think is my impression of it. Anyway,
Sounds
See ya.
good.